Hello everyone, I hope you had a good week, and welcome on in to another weekly update on the channel, and on things that are going through my mind right now. So, this weekend I want to talk about archaeology in video games. Not just in video games, but in particular in video games, in movies as well, and how it is portrayed, or how archaeologists are portrayed in video games. Not necessarily as a general rule, but how I feel about that. So I have an interesting story. I think it is an interesting story of why I majored in archaeology. I have a degree of, well, archaeology. It's European archaeology, so it's more related to the Romans and just proto-history here, in local proto-history in Portugal, and generally, I know how you still learn how to dig, which is a very important skill for an archaeologist. But you know, in the U.S., archaeology is a little bit different. It's a little bit more connected with paleontology and a bunch more dinosaur stuff than actually I ever learned about. I have a very passing knowledge of dinosaurs and evolution and all that sort of stuff. But still, I chose archaeology at the age of I probably was 17, but I had kept an interest in the subject for a while, and I think for me the changing point where I became more interested in something completely from outside my own family, as it were, because nobody in my family is an archaeologist apart from me. I'm not, but well, because I don't work in the field, but. That was at the age of 14, at the end of high school, I think it is, when my history teacher lent me a Sega Saturn game called Tomb Raider. Yeah, or actually it's called Lara Croft's Tomb Raider, or is it? It's got a full name. That game has a full name. But yeah, that was the first game in the series that I played. It was the first game in the series. It was the first game in the genre that I played, and it was the first time I really was showed the world of archaeology through a specific set of eyes, mind you, and that's the eyes that I want to talk about. So basically, Tomb Raider, long story short, basically I play Tomb Raider, you visit Vilcabamba, you go to Egypt and all that sort of stuff, and I look at that and I'm like, Vilcabamba, and I look it up, and apparently that's a real thing, and I'm like, whoa, this game takes place in a place, I know it's fiction, sure, but it's all cool, look at this, I want to explore this sort of stuff, I want to know about this, and I always knew that it's not a representation of how archaeology is, but it actually is not a representation of archaeology in a very specific way. So you look at Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider and that sort of games, and you think, okay, so there's no fantastic places like this. There's no, I don't know, there's no intact things that you can see, and never mind the magic and all that sort of stuff that those games have. I think Indiana Jones does, doesn't it? Never seen the movie, so yeah, anyway. But you think, like, okay, otherwise, it's pretty cool. You go into a place if you have the funding, and you look up something that you want to see, or who knows what happened here, let's find out, let's dig up a little bit, and oh look, there's a cave, and in there, with a torch and all that sort of, oh look at this. No, archaeology is not like that. I mean, I guess it can be, but no, that's not really. I think, just honestly speaking, we're talking probably 2 or 3 situations that were like that, and probably all of those were in Egypt, because the tombs were self-sustained and didn't cave in, and you found a tomb, you go in, and probably die with a terrible disease that went in there for however long, and that's that, and then the guy that comes after is gonna study that. Archaeology is more... I've never played Dark Souls, but it's more... Dark Souls is more archaeology related than any other game that I know of, because the story is not there, the history of the world is not told to you immediately, and that's, I think, the beauty of archaeology, and that's definitely something that appeals to me in Dark Souls. The fighting is cool as well, but I really, if I ever play Dark Souls on the channel, it's gonna be because of the history of the world, and I think it is an interesting history, all the characters and all that sort of stuff, because what archaeology is basically a lot of work in the field to dig up all the clues, and then a lot of work back home just reading up and trying to figure out where this connects and having theories. Okay, there's this stratus of layer land of something that you can date, and then all the rest below you can't date, but you know that it's older, and then there's this big hole, just all manner of weirdness that when you dig up you'll uncover, and you start uncovering from the newest stuff down to the oldest stuff, which is precisely the opposite. So I think that's nothing to do at all with what archaeology is in Tomb Raider, and at the end of the day, Tomb Raider is nothing more than just a puzzle game with a museum tour. It's basically what it is. It's a museum tour. You go through all these places, all these crazy things that you see, and it's like, yeah, it's laden with puzzles, but at the end, at the heart of it, it's just a museum tour. That's not even anywhere close to Archeology. The other day I was streaming The Witcher 3 and I came upon this castle. And I haven't looked it up. I need to look it up, actually. I'll do it when I do the highlights. But I saw the castle and I was like, this seems inspired by an actual real-world castle. Even the way that it's all destroyed and all this sort of stuff. It does look very close. The positioning of it in the landscape is not, but the castle itself, it seems very close. And I was looking, and probably boring people half to death while doing it. I was looking at the castle and was seeing, okay, there's this wall over here, and there's a wall that kind of, you know, you have the what's called the curtain wall of the castle, basically the walls of the castle, and then there's this like extension. I don't know the names. I should have looked it up. But basically, there's this extension. There's a wall that extends out of the main wall just by itself, and that was clearly just, you know, the developers meant for it to be just, you know, walls at the side of the road as you enter the castle. But I was looking at it like it was actually an older wall, just a sort of barbicane. I think it is called barbicane, or is that a different thing? Anyway, there's names. I'm sorry, I don't know the names. But I was looking at it and was like, I was imagining the progression of the castle all through history. And for somebody that knows a little bit of castle design and a little bit of how things work over time, I think for me to make a castle like that and make a level design like that and even put it into the story, I think I'd have a little bit of an easier time. I don't think the developers, even though they did a good job, a very good job at designing the castles and all the levels that they do in The Witcher 3, I don't think they knew a whole lot about, or that they wanted to touch on that for you just to be able to figure out, okay, so this part of the castle is a little bit older than that other one. You can see it by all the stonework, it's different, or it's like, oh, look at the color of this stone, it looks like, you know, there's a quarry a few miles down, it's like all that sort of stuff. You can connect, because in real life you have that, all those connections. In a game, you don't. But that's an interesting thing that I really like to do every once in a while, I was let down, I think. When I got into Archeology, I was let down by what I was expecting. Because what you'll really need to learn is more the historical context of everything. And yeah, that I like, I always did. But then it's the method of digging up, and that's a lot of work, and that's nothing to do with, you know, what's the beauty of archaeology, really. The method of digging things up is really important, and really, it requires skill, it requires knowledge and patience, and it requires practice as well, because, you know, you're actually digging up stuff with your little trawler and whatever it is, and, you know, pencils, that's brushes, that's one, pencils, no, it's, anyway, but basically, it's a lot of method to it, and not so much the exploration, but it's still there if you know how to look it up. And I wish more games had some approach like that. One thing I wanted to touch on though today is Fallout. One of the reasons, I think I mentioned this in my Let's Play of Fallout 1. One of the reasons why I love the world of Fallout so much is that the world itself is built on the ruins of an old civilization, but it is not directly connected. And there's all these myths and all these things that you build over time because there's such a huge span of time between the Great War and the time the games take place. Like the Glow, for example, in Fallout 1 is basically this old, extremely radiated facility with stuff in there. And people go there to die, effectively, and they send you there to die. But you manage to pull it out and you find all this old stuff, but it's really told to you, not really, you don't really find it, you don't really figure it out. And that's something I really wished Fallout did, but I mean, they did so many new things at the time anyway, that it's too much to ask. But I imagine just a world of Fallout where you can pick up just some clues every once in a while, and just some things like connecting here and there. You do have that, like the history of the Master, for example. You need to figure it out from different places and understand what's going on. It's not relevant to the game, but it's relevant to the lore, and figuring out all those stuff, talking to Harold and reading the Brotherhood data and all that sort of stuff, if you start figuring out what happened. And that's really cool, because the game doesn't tell you outright. And that's what I find appealing to Dark Souls, and that's what I find appealing to Archeology as well. I wish more games did that. I wish they did. So, games that came out this week that I wasn't able to cover or didn't want to cover. There's a lot of stuff that comes out. There's one that just came out yesterday. I have it written up there. in third place, but I want to talk about it more. Flat Space 2000 or 2K or something like that. I think it is double IK. I think that's what it's meant to be. It's basically a top-down space trader that focuses more on exploration. I looked at the videos and I was considering for a moment doing a Kernel RPG plays Flat Space 2K, but then I didn't find time, basically. Also the game seems pretty complex for what it is. It's not as easy to approach. It doesn't look as easy to approach as I wanted it to be for a first episode, for just a single episode. But if you like space exploration and if you find that trading and just hauling cargo from place to place is an interesting thing, be sure to check it out. There's links in the description for all of these games. These are just the games that came out this week. There's also the Shinus, the Lightning Kingdom, and it's an action RPG. It doesn't seem to be developed by Japanese people, but it looks very Japanese inspired. So if you want to check it out, you can check that out as well. And there's also another one called Onyx. That one hasn't caught my eye as much, but it's still in the same vein, I guess. I think it's turn-based combat though. And there's Grimoire Chronicles, which is a top-down JRPG as well. So a lot of JRPGs, they all come out a lot. It looks like JRPG anyway. It looks RPG Maker, but it looks very pretty, so you might want to check it out. It's pretty cheap as well, so if you feel like taking a gamble on that effectively, feel free to check it out down below. Links as always, and that's that for games this week. Next week, actually, we're well, we're gonna get a big one. We're gonna get a big one, and we're gonna play it on the channel. But yeah, stay tuned. And what I'm watching this week is back again to proper RPG stuff that matters to the audience here, and it's Retrospective Gaming's review of the original Wasteland, and I've been looking forward to that one from him in particular, because he has promised that for a long while. He's been working on it for a few months, I think, and I have never played, well, I have played, but just enough to figure out that Wasteland is not really an easy game to approach, but he kind of puts it in a different light. I'm interested in covering maybe in the future Wasteland, but not right now. Right now, if you want to check it out and if you want to see what is good and what is bad about the game, the original Wasteland released in 1988, I think it was. Anyway, I should, yeah, well, the game takes place in 1998, but I think, but it was released back in 1988. And if you don't know Wasteland, the original one, what it is, you probably know Wasteland 2, but Wasteland, the original one, was the effectively predecessor of Fallout. Yep, there's a lot of stuff that you see in the game that that made its way directly to Fallout 1 and Fallout 2, of course. Like the descriptions of combat, I think they literally, not literally lifted it from Wasteland, but they were all there because Fallout was supposed to be the spiritual successor of Wasteland. And there's also a lot of Brian Fargo in there, so if you've played, excuse me, hiccups. If you played a lot of Brian Fargo games, which I can't say I have played a lot, but I played a few, and I think you can tell. I think there's a lot of stuff in there that you can understand. As a side note, though, there's some more information about what Obsidian is working on for their next Tim Kaine and Leo Boyarsky game. And unfortunately, I can't confirm anything, nobody can confirm anything, but from what we've been able to, well, from what I've been able to glean out from interviews and all this sort of stuff, it doesn't seem to be anything close to Fallout 1 or 2. Still, I'm very excited for that game, but apparently it's gonna be third-person shooter action sort of thing, maybe, who knows? Anyway, I'm a big fan of all their games, so looking forward to that. But yeah, that's what I'm watching this week. As always, I want to thank every single one of you that has gone out of your way to support me on Patreon and making sure that I get a little bit closer to being able to make YouTube full-time. I really want to do it, but it's a step-by-step thing, and you guys have been extremely generous with your support. It's been growing a lot over the last month, and I thank you very, very much for that. And especially, I want to thank all of my patrons. I got a new patron this week. I'll keep going back and forth between Patreon and Patreon. I got a new patron, let's call it like that, this week, and that's Gregory Krasikov. He has been very kind to support me, and that was halfway through the week, so I'm looking forward to having you with me. Thank you very much for your support. Also, thank you very much to Benji, Namiknor, Robert Daffern, Jordan, Cozart, Rob Anybody, Michael Grayson, Higher Ground Gaming, Casper, KJ Jorgensen, Paul Bible, Joshua, A. Ennis, and Adam Collider. Thank you very much for your support. And if you want to support me on Patreon, there's a link in the description. Actually, I think I can put a link up there. So if you want to support me or you just want to see what is up with that, go ahead and click that link, and yeah, it'll take you there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will be more than happy to answer. Thank you very much. And this week's quote is by Martin Luther King Jr. It's got directly to do with what I was talking about before, about history, about archaeology, but I want to put it, let's read it first. I want to put it in context with video games, because, you know, I don't want to make light of it or anything, but let's see. We are not makers of history. We are made by history. And you can give a lot of meaning to this in different things. The fact that, you know, we don't actually make history, it's the people that come after that makes the history. We make the present. History is more the written record of what goes on, and yeah, it's, you know, it's the victors that do it, and in a lot of regards, not always, and it's been changing over the years and all of that stuff. But really, the bit that I really like is we are made by history. And when you're making a plot or a story or a setting, a video game, a movie, a book, it doesn't matter what it is, if you have a history to it, if you add something to found it on, to basically support the whole narrative, you're making it richer. It doesn't need to be as detailed as, I don't know, The Lord of the Rings. I'm a big fan of that, and that's probably one of the reasons. The Lord of the Rings and just the whole setting was created because Tolkien wanted to give his made-up language the thing that all languages live by: history. Because all of our dialogue, all of our discourse and mannerisms and all that sort of stuff, all the language that we traded between each other, that's all because of history. And Tolkien realized this. He was a linguist, but he had also he had also studied history. So he made his world based on that, from the very beginning to the very end. Well, at least the end of his stories. If you make a world based like that, where things don't necessarily all, you know, go towards one ending, just everything was made for that, but just everything draws a little bit from this and from that and from that. And if you allow the player, or if you allow the reader or the viewer to glean in the history of the past, that's really good. That makes the story better, and it makes it more believable. And it allows, the more important aspect of every story, it allows you to take it seriously and ask yourself questions. The other day I was recording an episode that I think has gone up already. No, actually it hasn't gone up already, but I was recording an episode of Neverwinter Nights, and I was taking it seriously, the story. I want to take it seriously, but I don't think it was meant to be taken seriously, the story, because, I mean, I haven't been able to make a decision yet on whether or not it's a big plot hole right there, but I was taking it seriously, and it resulted in me being a little bit upset. Not really upset, I mean, but you know what I mean? It's when you just can't take a story, a plot seriously, a world, game world, or books or movies, because if the author didn't take it far enough, it's gonna have problems, and you're gonna find those problems. But yeah, we don't make history, we're made by it. I think that's very important to realize, and that's gonna be that. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for another week for watching. And if you just watch every once in a while a video or there, but that's fine as well. Thank you very much for all of your time that you spend enjoying the games that I enjoy, and that you enjoy hopefully as well, and enjoying them with me. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.